society, going to talk to people and actually now getting to explain to them, look, the building that you have is contributing to the carbon print to this level. So let's start understanding it from there.
Definitely. We used to do it right when we used to consider where we are. We're in Nairobi, we're in Kenya, we have the equator, the sun is overhead most of the year. There's no reason why we shouldn't take advantage of our natural environment.
Yes.
When we're building, and we used to build right, then we got to a point with industrialization, everybody wants electricity. We don't care how much it costs about the electricity,
yes,
or we didn't at the time of building. And then we're wasting. You would have lights on, for example, materials being imported from wherever, rather than considering what we're doing to the environment. If we have to ship a specific material for a specific building to a site all the way to Kenya, and beyond that, we have to consider what happens to those materials afterwards. Mm-hmm. You've seen buildings being demolished here. What are we doing about that? We're checking to the environment. When we talk about the youth who are going to inherit the earth, have we considered the youth locally who are going to inherit this Kenya, Nairobi, and the cities
yes,
that we are actually building?
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
I know we want to talk really about the broader picture of what it means there for us to move to zero carbon emissions from buildings by 2050. I just want us to go back again and talk about the existing framework. Do we have an existing framework? And I know right now the government is pushing for the affordable housing agenda.
Yes.
How do we integrate this into that? Is it provided for? And I want you to talk to me from the perspective of, are we moving green? Is it cheaper? And how does it fit therefore in the top four agenda? Because that, we got to speak about it.
I like that you brought up the Big Four agenda,
yes,
and affordable housing.
Yes.
One of the things we've been talking about and shouting off the rooftops is that affordable housing has to be sustainable affordable housing. Mm-hmm. Sustainable during operation as well as during construction. And what we're constructing is going to be our future Nairobi or our future Kenya. So we have to consider that from design. Let's not make the same mistakes we've made in the city.
Yes.
When we talk about green buildings being expensive, we know that's outdated information and it's a perception. Many years ago, yes, there might have been a premium on it, but when you're building with the sun and the wind available to you, why aren't we doing it? Our grandparents used to do it. I don't remember us suffering too much and putting air conditioning,
yes,
but we survived in a similar climate. So that's what we're asking the designers to consider, because in the 1980s we moved away from that and we started copying buildings from other cities in the world.
Yes.
You know, someone would plunk a building in Nairobi, full glass, all sides, and then you expect to use air conditioning, use electricity, fossil fuels, to actually make that building usable.
Yes. So are we saying that there's already an existing framework for us to start working from, or we have to now sit down and start rethinking it?
Well, the frameworks actually exist internationally.
Yes.
And there's some that have been contextualized. So Kenya Green Building Society has those tools,
yes,
has those licenses. We've trained over 300 professionals in this market to
yes,
actually do that. So we have local talent to do it. But we must ask for it. On the government side, we're now reviewing the building code. I do believe our building code is dated 1968.
It has been.
What have we been doing
yes,
for 51
yes,
years?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we look at when we're talking about the Big Four agenda also.
Yes.
It was pegged on the building code as well. So are we going to get there? What will it take for us to get there? Because this looks like a shift, really.
We must.
Yes.
The thing is that we must do it
yes,
now. We're already suffering and wasting resources. For example, when we have the floods, we go clean up and go back to the same buildings.
Yes.
We have drought. The water is wasted already. We didn't collect the rainwater. We don't have wholesome thinking in what we're doing. But the good thing is the government is working now. The building code is being reviewed, and the affordable housing that I mentioned has been deemed to be affordable and sustainable as well, due to the work of advocacy that we've been doing. But the Big Four agenda people just look at affordable housing and think that's everything we have to consider in buildings. What happens with the other three items?
Yes.
Everything occurs in a building. You know, food security, you're going to use the built environment at some point. So what we're trying to say here, healthcare, for example, hospitals, they must be green. All the items that we've put in the Big Four agenda occur in the built environment, and quite quickly, we have to have the paradigm shift to make them green.
I want you to talk to me at the examples that we're talking about right now, that it's happening somewhere else. That's fine. We've always been told, like this Kenya, we are a slow economy. We always test and try before we actually get in.
Yeah.
How far are we in achieving this? I know we're talking about 2030 and 2050, but how far are we really in achieving this?
Well, we're there. We actually have 24 buildings in Nairobi that
Yes.
are being certified to international standards with a local context. They're actually on their way to net zero. So there's a home that's been certified with the IFC World Bank standard called EDGE,
Yes.
which we administer locally. There's Greenster. Today we're actually celebrating the first Greenster certified office building. It's a 5-star building. It's called Daniel Towers
Yes.
on Wangechi Way. The developer actually said that he's already seeing a reduction in operational cost of 14 to 15%. The building is fully occupied in this economic times that you've mentioned.
Yes.
So there's a lot of benefits that we can talk about, but we wanted to zero in today and launch the net zero buildings because percentage increments or percentage improvements are not good enough. Climate change is not waiting for any of us. So we've said, let's launch it. The tools are available. You can have net zero water. Think about the whole cycle of water around the building. Think about the energy as well. And energy is not just electricity from Kenya Power or putting solar panels on the roof. It's a reduction of the demand of energy. Waste, recycle waste. And when we look at all this net zero building launch, you find the youth are in the center of that. You know those dates you mentioned, 2030, 2050?
2050 as well. Mhm.
It's the youth and the young people. Someone born today will be
Yes.
30 years in 2050. That's the building they'll be operating in.
Yes.
So our decisions now really put the youth at the center of it, and we must have them, not as a tick box exercise, but have them in the core of the decision making as well.
Yes, good progress. We're talking about a number of buildings that we can actually count. 24 is a good number. But therefore, when I listen to you speak, I hear as if it's not just you saying, well, we need to do ABCD. I hear you are integrating a lot of people in this.
Yes.
Therefore, what you've been around, you've actually done your surveys. How open is the economy when it comes to the players that you have to talk to,
Yeah.
the guys who have to collaborate with you, understand that we need to do this? How open are they?
Not open enough. It's until we have catastrophes that we start listening.
Yes.
We see that we've had 110 Kenyans die from collapsed buildings since June 2014. We've had 21 die from terrorist attacks. What does that say about our construction industry? Yet we have tools. It's 2019 and we still have buildings collapsing.
Yes.
That's a shame. So we must go back and actually start considering what we must do. Because of the catastrophes, because of climate change, we've noted due to adaptation, people are now listening. People don't want to go and buy water. They say, all right,
Yes.
what were you saying about net zero water? I can harvest the water, I can recycle it. Great, they're listening. I don't want to pay a lot of high electricity costs. What were you saying about energy efficiency? But sometimes if it's in an existing building, there's only so much you can do. But with new buildings and the designs, perfect opportunity. For example, with our counties, we have the greatest opportunity to do spatial planning. Because one thing we've considered is you're fixed when you buy your plot to face a certain way. And if your plot is a certain size, that's it. Your windows have to face that way. And if it's facing the east and west facade, this has never changed. The sun rises in the east and sets in the west. That's all over the world. But then for us here, we get the most heat. And if we allow for that, then we put in air conditioning. There's your costs coming up, maintenance of the air conditioning, etc. So the poverty line as well we see can be improved by building zero buildings,
Yes.
net zero buildings. And it's not just for the ones that are commercial. We're now saying even affordable, even the slum upgrading programs really need to have this holistic thinking. And in going around, as you say, I've battered the streets talking about this and my team at Kenya Green Building Society. There wasn't much listening, but we realized there's a lot of silo efforts. So for example, in a building, we have to consider Ministry of Energy, because we're talking about energy,
Yes.
Ministry of Water, KEBS. There's so many isolated people who are dealing with this. If we had a collaborative effort, because the process of building green is actually integrated, not forgetting the financiers.
Yes.
Because we can have all this and the
And the
financiers say, we
financials
don't
will
know
look
what
at it
that
and say,
is.
we don't know what that is, isn't it?
So we realized that. We realized
Yes.
that back in 2017.
Yes.
So we had the Africa Green Building Summit where the core theme was actually financing green buildings. And from that, we started the discussions around green bonds. and actually verifying what are the green points about. What are you financing in the building? So far we've seen the discussion is around solar PV, renewable energy, great, but not good enough. We need finance for the entire green building because we have internationally tested standards, contextualized. There's the 24 buildings I mentioned. They're here standing, you can touch and feel. Why aren't we financing for green mortgages? I would like to have a green mortgage for my house. I'm sure you would do as well. Incentivized, and then we're actually doing the positive thing for our environment. Lastly, I'd like to mention the first bank that has come on board to become a member of Kenya Green Building Society is Barclays Bank from ABSA Group. It's taken us since 2011, 2012 to this year to have the first bank come on board.
Which is exactly what I wanted to cap this conversation this afternoon with. So you've been here, you've spoken to these quarters that you need to address, you've seen exactly how the response has been. From your end, you feel like, yes, they're responding, but not good enough. What do you wish, therefore, to happen for us to have this complete shift to zero net buildings in the Kenyan economy?
Well, the first thing I would like to say, our president should say, we are building green. Any new buildings coming up must be green. We're already getting Nakuru County is going to sign up to that. We have Nairobi County that signed up, but there's been some slow improvement on that. We need the 47 counties, not one county at a time. Let's do it. New buildings must be green. They must be climate friendly, low carbon resilient buildings, so that when you and I build, and there's climate change effect, my building doesn't get washed away. That's the first thing. Second, we need to be educated about this. We need to know that we don't know enough. We have the information, we're available to provide for that. Lastly, we need to demand for them. If you're not asking for a green building, you won't get one. You need to go back to your home and ask, how much am I paying electricity? Why am I paying so much? Is it because of the design of the buildings or the use of the building? And it's all the way from residential, commercial. And if we demand that, the developers will have to build it, the financiers will have to finance.
Very much. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you very much.
All right.